Thank you so much for coming out tonight. It is a pleasure to have you all here. Hope you've met some great people. Stick here and stay around. The best part of all this stuff is the community, right? I see some faces in here. Want to thank everyone that invited people. So thank you so much, Lydia. I know you invited quite a few people. I appreciate it. Charles Gorman, if you don't know Charles runs the So No Investor Group. So that is on the first Tuesday of every month. And if you want to have your finger on the pulse of what is happening in South Knoxville, it is a South Waterfront mastermind. You're going to get to meet everyone you need to know down there. Great community. Charles is a great guy, great investor, and a great resource for us. So glad. Thank you for inviting people, Charles. Sean, where are you, Sean? You see Sean on stage here. Sean is a local multifamily investor. If you know Sean, great guy, heart of gold. He is a fixture in a lot of the local investor groups here. He invited quite a few people. Thank you so much. And Tillman, where are you at, Tillman? Tillman drove in here from Virginia Beach. He's another one of our speakers. Thank you for coming in, Tillman. We appreciate you making the drive today to come share. He's going to share his story of how he was able to get $8 million in assets in 18 months. Starting on here. So we're going to give you kind of just how to get started. We're going to take you on an overview of how to syndicate. Dalton, are we ready to go? Fantastic. Did you push?
Yep.
We're streaming on Facebook?
Yeah.
Okay.
99% positive.
You know, I rarely make mistakes, but I usually do them in public.
Yeah, right.
So both of those, one of those is true.
Cool.
I often make mistakes. All right. So, who's been to a grid before? Ooh,
sweet.
I love it. Look around. Who's at their first grid tonight? Oh, man.
Let's go.
Thank you. Fantastic. We're really glad that we have you here. So, Corey, what is grid?
Oh, yeah. That's cool. Awesome. Welcome, everybody. Thanks so much for coming in today. Grid is a global real estate community. We are not gurus, like I say. We are not gurus, right? We're just real people doing real deals in real time, here to share our experiences, and we hope that you share your experiences with us, right? This is a global community mastermind that we bring down at a hyper-local level, right? So we source knowledge from all of our resources across the planet and look to bring it here to Knoxville to bring with all of our local people as well, to where we're able to just continue to share and grow together.
Yeah, so I talked about this before. If you're gonna make effective change, right? There are three components that you need, right? Because investing is the study of behavior. Finance is the study of money. Anybody in here know what to do with their money and not do it? No one else? Everyone's filed their 2022 taxes. Everyone's filed their quarterly taxes. Got their IRAs maxed out. Yeah? Letting a bookkeeper handle. Got reserves. No, it's how do I put those things into place, right? How do I make the behavior modification? How do I do those things? And I need a catalyst. Hopefully this will be a catalyst for some of you. Right? I need a community that's going alongside me. So wherever you are in your investment journey, there are people in the room that are at the same stage, right? And then I've got to go back and I've got to take people on that same journey. So we've got people in this room that are willing to mentor. I know we've got people in this room that if you're new and you're looking for someone to put your eyes on a deal, they'd take a look at it for you. Anybody here doing business right now, would they be willing to look at a deal for a new investor? Give them some advice. Anybody? See a couple hands there? If you're new, that's who you want to go talk to. Go talk to these guys, right? Givers gain. We're a big believer in the go-giver. So why we do this is if you have it going on, we want to do deals with you. That's why we are here. We have to do deals with you. If you're brand new, come ask us questions. Want to go on the journey. Want to teach you how so you can invest alongside and bring deals to the room, right? And we want to see deals happen in the room. So if you've got something, let us know. One of the most exciting things that can happen is Sean is here tonight. Sean is a KP on a deal because I connected him to a guy who's doing a syndication down in Fort Lauderdale. And I don't know, if you're in this game, on the agent side at least, it's really exciting when you're able to make connections.
Plug people in.
Whew, yeah. My favorite part of the job.
Yeah, that's it for
All
sure.
Right.
No, cool, but yeah, really our mission here, right, is just that. It's just to connect like-minded people, learn, and all grow here through this beautiful thing we call real estate.
Awesome. So who drove the farthest tonight? Besides Tillman. Tillman doesn't count. We already bribed him and with dinner and lots of other stuff. Who drove the farthest tonight? Who thinks they drove the farthest tonight?
Who thinks they drove
This
the
is a
farthest
participatory.
Yeah. Where'd you drive from, Zach?
Atlanta.
Yeah, where'd that
David
dude
from
come
Atlanta.
Yep.
Ooh, Miles. 4 hours. From Atlanta as well. Okay, you guys drive together? Ooh, So
who's
who
further
drove
in Atlanta?
farther? So who's from like Marietta, and then who's from like south of the perimeter?
Well, I drove Houston first.
Oh man, I love it. That guy, natural salesman, Miles. Miles is new to the group. You're gonna fit in fantastic. All right, so David, I think, drove the farthest. We've got something for you. We'll get you some grid swag, and thank you so much. Yeah, we'll get your size. We got some shirts back there on the table. Okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's get going. Do a little intro.
Yeah. So, I want to introduce this guy here, Corey King. If you haven't met Corey, I'm excited for you tonight. Right? He's one of the best guys that I know. The reason why I do this with Corey is because I've watched Corey come in here, get started, new in the industry, right before I met him, and then work his way up, right, to being a net worth millionaire. His wife's retired, about to get about 4K in passive income, right? Just started flipping lots, worked his way up from the kitchen in a restaurant to being a general manager. So if you want someone that's actually done this, been in the trenches, who's just a dog for deals, that is Corey. Corey's obsessed. He's out there in crawl spaces.
Don't pay retail. I don't pay retail.
Yes.
Right. Thank you, man. I appreciate that intro, certainly. Justin Myers is my business partner. Justin is like a brother to me. Justin has been the best connector I've ever met, period, hands down, right? Justin is a serial giver, right? Somebody who just purely comes from contributions, and who's been able to start up a handful of nonprofits, start up a handful of organizations, just really great at building platforms and building community. So I highly encourage every one of you to please come and meet Justin at some point in your life. It'll make your life a whole lot better.
I see a lot of familiar faces. I'm so glad that y'all spent your time here with us. It means a lot to us that you choose to come out here and spend time with us every month, truly. So thank you. It's our favorite night of the month. Let's get started. So what do we want to accomplish? We want to build some community, and how can you connect with us? 2 easy ways. We have this thing cycled. It was going on before. We've got a Facebook group, Grid Knoxville. That's where we're driving everything. So if you come up and ask me, I'm going to say, hey, go in the Facebook group. If you need a hard money lender, I'm going to say, go in the Facebook group so I can connect Chris with you, so that Walker, who's new, can see that as well. All right, we're going to drive that as well, because if you're new to the area, it's a way to recreate what we have in the room here online. It's probably the best way. If you want to be on the mailing list, or if you want to send out deals that we have, you want to go to our meetup link at gridknoxville.com. Sign up there.
Sweet.
All right.
Do a little community intros.
Woo! Okay, so we've done this before. We're going to do this a little differently. This is a time to be, who's got a really unique niche? Who's brand who wants to go first? Yes.
Buy pretty much strictly owner finance deals off market.
So you buy owner finance deals. You're looking for subject to and just owner finance. Sorry, owner finance deals on market. What's your name?
Bryant.
Bryant. Okay. So who are you looking to meet tonight, Bryant?
Maybe a potential mentor, but I have 3 properties I need to offload.
Okay.
Off market.
So you've got some deal flow, right? So there's a couple categories in the room tonight, and for the sake of having you do some intros afterwards, for the sake of not slowing the room down, because we've done it before, it takes about 30, 40 minutes to do this correctly, we're going to do some categories. So if you've got deal flow, like Bryant, if you've got a deal that someone needs to come talk to you afterwards, put your hand up. I've got some deals. Who else? Let's see. Lisa, Chris, David's got some from Atlanta. Zach Clift has some. He's dropped some in the group. Awesome. Tillman's got some back there. JT, you see your hand up there? Great. Miss anybody? No? Who's got capital they're looking to invest tonight? Chris, our hard money guy. Miles has got some capital. Walla's got some capital. Gregory Crane.
Jay.
We've worked with him before. You got some capital as well, Jay? Fantastic. Okay. Who's an agent in here? Take a look around, right? You want to know these. There's a reason why we run this, why there's so many agents. Give your hands up, agents. Like, this is who controls the deal flow, right? They see a ton of these assets. People call them up and say, I don't know what to do. That's why they're in here. You want to know. These are actual agents that work with investors and invest themselves. Awesome. We have any mortgage guys in the room? Mortgage gals? Mortgage people? Right in the back. Woo woo. Let's take a look around. Right? So we've got investment products. We've got conventional products. If you're looking to refi back out of those deals, you're going to need those as well. All right. Who, on the asset side, who's looking to acquire an asset right now? Anybody looking to buy for the right deal? Right? The time is always right to buy the right deal, piece of real estate. Who plays in the single family space? Yeah. And who's looking to buy and hold? All right? Who's flipping? Who's flipping right now? I see Charles is flipping. Morgan in the back
Zach's
flipping.
just
Zach
here,
is.
Yeah.
Yes. So we got some flippers in here. Whatever makes sense. Okay. I love it. Who's looking for multi? 1 to 4 units. Keep your hands up. Who's looking for more than 4? We are talking about Syndicate. I see Sean, Tillman, Chris. Some names go up there. All right. Who's looking for a niche that we haven't mentioned yet? There we go, Chris. Let's go.
I'm looking for commercial retail in good areas with boutique shops, something that a mom and pop would always kind of rotate in.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, fantastic. Anthony DeFranco there is also a commercial agent as well. You know, Lisa is. Chris, what do you? I see you raising your hand.
Storage facilities, RV parks, and mobile home parks.
Storage facilities, RV parks, mobile home parks, right?
Anything creative on
And anything creative on the residential side, yeah.
That was Brian.
I know. Anybody else looking to acquire assets with very little money down using creative financing? Anybody? Okay, cool. We don't have that much competition, only like a third of us. So I think everyone would buy those. Vernon, I saw your hand go up.
I like mixed use with the retail on the bottom and then apartments or something on top.
Okay, so you're looking for some mixed use as well. If anyone hasn't seen some of the changes that they're proposing, right? The county and the city are both pushing really hard at one of the solutions to the housing crisis we're in right now is building mixed use down all of our corridors. So if you haven't gone, Google that messy middle, go in car. If you don't have it, ask us, we'll get it to you. You want to read that report about where the future of development's going in Knox County. They're going to tell you the playbook ahead of time. It's on us if we don't educate ourselves.
I'm looking for 20 to 200 acres in here and the Anderson County line.
20 to 200 acres in here in the Anderson County line. Cool. What's the budget? Okay, open. So who's got any land between here and Anderson County? Fantastic. That's, I guess, let's the caveat, that's developable.
Yeah.
Yes.
I got you.
Commercial lots. Ooh, zoned commercial lots. Are you looking for, are they open to rezoning? You want stuff that's already zoned commercial?
I would be open to rezoning, but I'd rather it already be zoned.
Cool. Awesome. I know a couple commercial brokers back there that are going to get with you, JT. They might have some options for you, set you up on a search. Corey, what do you want to know? What are you looking for that's unusual?
Right now, I'm looking for just that, a mixed-use space, something with like open 2,000 square foot, low level, with at least 2 apartments above it. Budget is $600,000. Looking for a clubhouse, essentially.
I love it. I love it. What else didn't I mention? Who's got a niche in here? I know I got an insurance broker in here. I've got a whole life. Where's my guy
Yeah.
from New York Life? Yes, sir.
We buy tax deeds before foreclosure. Right now, around the Knox County area, all counties around it. We need contractors. We do light rehab, when we get that ready to develop. These things go in quickly, do some touch-ups, some paint, whatever, cutting grass. Our problem is just getting people reliably, in and out within a week, and get it done as fast as possible, at a reasonable price, so I can get it to somewhere.
And I remember from meeting you at Knoxville's Best Real Estate Investor Meetup. If you haven't been, despite the name, it's an excellent meetup. I highly suggest you check it out. Second Wednesday of every month. Our friends Jason and Richard run it. What area? I remember this. You were not just in Knox County. You're in some other counties as well, right?
We're in the Tennessee County,
Yeah.
except Shelby.
Okay.
Everything but
Everything east of Shelby.
Okay. Perfect.
mostly tax sales, probably in 30 to
We have any contractors in here tonight? Is everybody too busy? Because I don't see the guys that I normally throw business to. A couple contractors. Don't be shy. Mr. Simoni, yeah? Some names in the back. Sweet. Who else? I saw a couple of hands go up that I not
I'll
hit.
show Leah over here.
Yes. Are you looking at you're a contractor or you have a niche you haven't hit?
Well, I'm looking for garages, small warehouses that can service. I am a contractor, but that I wouldn't necessarily hit.
Awesome. So we're looking at some warehouse space, maybe some light industrial, right? If you're going back to our commercial 101 last month, that we could, something as a conversion project?
Yeah,
Sweet.
repurposing.
Okay. You open a new build like barn dominiums?
Yeah.
I've got someone for you.
If you go into a apartment.
If anyone's looking for barn dominiums, I got somebody that murders the locals because people here charge insane amounts. the overhead's insane, and we got someone that'll just go to Atlanta and get the materials himself, and
Do it.
yeah, it's outrageous.
Yep.
Sweet.
Leah over here.
Land survey, commercial, residential.
Leah just did one for us. We got another one on the way for us. So if you need a surveyor that can get something done in less than 6 weeks and actually
Right
answers
there.
their phone,
Right there.
we have
Please
found a
connect with Leah
unicorn.
Metcalf. Yeah.
There's Leah Metcalf.
Yeah, please.
Yes.
That Knoxville group that you mentioned with the really horrible name.
Oh, it's a great name. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. It meets the second Tuesday.
Second Tuesday of the month.
It's the second.
No, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yes, because Charles is the first Wednesday. They're the second Tuesday. Thank you. What's your name? Thank you. I appreciate
Thank you,
that.
Lance.
Yeah. Cool.
That's cool.
All right.
Beautiful.
Anybody got anything I missed? So this is, if you ever come here and we're asking you who do you need to meet, this is the whole purpose of this. We've got a list of a ton of people. So, and if you want to get connected, we're going to drop a survey in Facebook on Friday. We're just going to ask you who you are, what you're looking to meet, and how we can connect you. So look for that on Friday, fill that out. Whew, time for the Memorex disclaimer.
That's it.
All right. Anybody who here is an agent? Right? So if you're an agent in the state of Tennessee, a couple of things I want to make very clear. We are not professionals at anything except for selling real estate, and really that's just negotiating and giving advice about the market. We're not tax professionals, we're not syndication experts, we're not real estate attorneys, surveyors, appraisers, inspectors. We just play them on, I guess this is close enough to TV, right? So invest at your own risk. Don't invest money that you can't afford to lose, right? You can lose money in investing, and people do lose money in investing, right? So vet all this information carefully. And if you got questions, come get with us or get with someone you trust afterwards and run this stuff by them, all right? Let's get learning.
Cool. Let's do it. Let's sit down.
Yeah, let's do it. Woo. Cool. Take a breath. Corey, what is real estate syndication?
Awesome. A syndication or a syndicator is really just going to be a partnership between several investors. They're going to be able to combine their skills, resources, and capital to be able to go ahead and manage a property or take on a project that they wouldn't otherwise be able to do it alone, right? We like to say that no one succeeds alone, and this is the pan-ultimate version of that, right? Is being able to bring in your skills, your abilities, your wherewithal, the amount of capital you have to go in with somebody else or multiple people to go for a larger project.
And I think I met Jeremiah earlier. If you haven't met Jeremiah, we talked about the same exact thing, right? When you're not the biggest fish in the pond, you roll in with some other people, and you get in rooms you wouldn't normally be able to. You distribute some risk, and you've got some size and some experience to back you. You can scale really quickly. It's a way to mitigate some risk and to get larger returns if you do it correctly.
Yeah, it's huge. Oh, I don't know why that wasn't there.
We're going to skip self-directed IRA so we can do a panel today for you guys. So let's walk through an example of a syndication. And when we're thinking about just a mental model, I think of it a little like wholesaling, right? When I wholesale, I'm assigning my bundle of rights. I'm not selling real estate. And when I syndicate, right, I'm not selling securities or something else. I'm using a different structure so people can invest beside me. So we're going to walk through what that structure looks like. So, all right.
I had a typo in here, but I'll go through this one to kind of lay out an example, right? So Justin finds a deal for $1 million. Let's call him the sponsor. And as the manager and operator of that deal, Justin, aka the sponsor, is going to put 5% equity, $50,000, and raises the remaining 95% of the equity down payment from investors. So Justin's responsible for managing that day-to-day operations of the deal.
Right,
we
so
understand Justin's
as the
role.
sponsor, I got a little bit of skin in the game. I got $50K in the game, and then that's only 5% of my down payment there, right? I've got that from other people to go take this asset down.
That's right.
So there's a couple different ways you can structure that. There's a straight split and a waterfall. So walk me through a straight split, Corey.
Cool. Straight split's going to be the easiest way to really understand how this works. I mean, at the end of the day, it's really just a straight across the board. So an example, if a deal uses an 80-20 split, that means that 80% of the returns, cash flow profits from the sale go to the limited partners in this, your LPs. There's a group of investors who have invested passively in this deal. They're not actively managing this project again because that's Justin's role. So the other 20% goes to Justin, who's the general partner of this, aka the deal sponsor and the one who actually syndicated the deal.
Right, and so this is it doesn't change. It's the same the entire way through. So the cash flow, like while we control the asset, it's getting split according to this. And then when whatever exit strategy we use, right, to create a taxable event and sell this asset, that's also getting split on the same token there, right? So I'm a general partner, and everyone that I go talk to is going to be a limited partner. So it's a way to quote unquote passively invest, right? That's what Grant Cardone is pitching to all those people that he's trying to get to come in and invest, right? Is how can you be part of a massive syndication? What's the other structure, Corey?
Cool. So yeah, like I said, like the same as whether this is $1 or $100,000 in returns, it's always going to be that 80-20 split. So when we talk about the other one, sorry.
No, I said one question there. Why would you use, when is this beneficial? Like why, if I'm an investor, because right, most of us that are doing this, the vast majority of us are not going to be general partners, right? We're going to be limited partners. It's just the way that the numbers break down, right? There's a lot more limited partners than there are general partners. Why would I want to invest in a straight split deal? When can it be advantageous?
Well, it's a higher return. It's 80% to you as the limited partner in there. So the overall return on that is going to be much beneficial, especially if this is something that's going to be a higher returns versus something that needs a little bit more creativity, management, skill set. That's where this waterfall strategy is going to come into play.
Yeah, and so you got one party putting out the capital, and the other party is actually putting in all the intellectual equity, the sweat equity, right, and getting the deal done.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
So the other one is a waterfall structure, right? And this has got you're going to hear this term a lot, pref. Pref, you throw this around, it sounds like you know what you're doing, right? I see my syndicators in the back, what's the pref, right? It's what's the preferred return. So let's walk through what this looks like, Corey. We might take our time here. So walk me through how a waterfall is going to work.
Cool. So if a syndication includes that 8% return, that means that the first 8% of those returns, cash flow, profits from the sale, goes directly to you and the other limited partner investors. That is, that the investors get 100% of that first 8% of returns. General partner, Justin, may only get a piece of the returns if the returns are above 8%.
Does that make sense? Everyone tracking, right? So you've got a preferred return. Hey, come invest with me, right? I'm going to give you a preferred return. I'm not going to make any money until you make money. I'm going to give you a preferred 8%. So then what happens? I need to hit that because we'll talk about the waterfall. What happens if I hit that? So we hit 8%, Corey.
Yep.
All right, so walk me through what happens first year.
Yeah. So first year the returns are 8%, means the investors are getting their full 8% return. Where you get $8,000 or 8% of your original $100,000 invested. Justin, as the general partner, doesn't get any of that whatsoever.
Yep, but you guys are made whole. All that's flowing into you directly. You get paid first.
That's right.
Okay. Does this guarantee that you're going to get an 8% return?
No.
Is everyone awake? Yeah? Does it guarantee you're going to get 8% return? No, you can totally get burned on these. What it does mean, though, is that the money that comes in is going to go to you first. Right? And it's a way for me to do a risk reversal as a general partner, right? I don't get paid unless you get paid. So I've got an incentive to go get a return that's going to exceed 8%.
Right.
Right? Or else I'm working for free.
You're working for free at that point, so you better get it done.
What happens once you hit 8%, Corey?
Sure. So once we hit that 8% threshold, the waterfall model is what comes into play. So the next few percentage points worth of returns above that is going to activate a different split all the way through. For example, any returns from, say, 8 to 14% might go as a 70-30 split. 70% to the limited partner investors, 30% to Justin as the general partner. So he gets a nice bump for getting returns above that. All right.
So once you go to the next one, right? So let's say we clear 14%, I might make it even more advantageous to myself, right? Hey, because if I'm getting more than a 14% return as a limited partner, are you happy? If you put in 100,000, and would you? Anybody here take a deal if I give them a 14% return next year? Yeah, awesome. Let's
100%.
talk afterwards. We'll set up a syndication, Sean Tillman, right? What might that change to, Corey? If I'm clearing 14%?
Yeah, I mean, once you've gotten beyond 14%, which is already going to be an outstanding, you've hit a home run all the way out. The split might change. Again, all of this is like negotiable on how you're setting all this up. So perhaps at that point, you're actually going to go to a 50-50 split. And so all these different thresholds, all these different gates is a way for you to actually structure this out to be beneficial for him, right, as the general partner, the person who like really put this together, But that's what creates that waterfall structure, right? As you're tracking, like at each new level, the split's going to change, and it's a great return for those who'd invested passively in this. It's certainly a great return for this guy who didn't really put too much capital in it on the front end, but is getting a killer return on the back end.
So does that make sense? Like some simple terms you hear over and over again, right? Is it a straight split or a waterfall, right? What's the pref? Is there a pref? So you're gonna know, is there a preferred return if I'm a limited partner? And then those thresholds or gates. So what are the gates? And they're gonna walk you through. If you ask the gates, that's gonna be, so between 8% is a gate, 14% is a gate, right? Where the split structure changes again. And if you can ask those questions, right? Just like in commercial we talked about last month, you wanna use the right terminology because people are vetting you. I wanna use the right terminology. Now a lot of syndicators, right, are of course, if they're doing this well, are in the role of educating limited partners. So if they're not willing to, it might be a warning sign. But that's good. We're gonna walk through that, and now we'll talk about structure. And then we'll bring Tillman and Sean up here, and we'll dive into, have them answer the questions you have if you wanna dive into the nitty gritty of how to actually run these plays.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
So what some people like about a waterfall structure is just it incentivizes the GP to work harder. GP likes it, right? Because, hey, if I go perform and I've run all my numbers on the front end, I make more money and I want to get to the place where I'm making 50. That's the role of being a syndicator, right? If I can wait and do all the work and do the front end, on the back end, I can be handsomely rewarded. But like commercial, it can be a play that takes you years to get paid off.
Sure. That's not a bad play, though, overall.
Mm-hmm. Right? So what are the entities you use to structure that, Corey?
So they're usually structured, right, as an LLC. It's like we're going to collectively come together, form an LLC or a limited partnership, and the sponsor participates as a general partner or manager of that LLC. The investors participate as limited partners or just passive members. Right? They're purely there, just put their money into this vehicle. We're going to create this LLC with a full operating agreement and then go move forward.
Has anybody in here participated in a syndication? Anybody? Let's say a couple. As a limited partner or as a GP, guys?
Limited, but it's not paid.
Limited, different structure. What you, Pete?
Limited.
Limited? Anybody in the back? I know Sean and...
We're general.
What's that?
Sean and I are general partners.
General partners on that one. I know Tillman's been a general partner. Anybody else experienced syndications? Yeah, Duke?
I was in one that, quite some time ago, 25 years ago, 30 years ago.
So if we can't hear Duke in the back, Duke has got a wealth of experience. If you don't know Duke Morton, we've had some great conversations, but Duke was saying he's been in one 25 years ago. So this is not a brand new concept, even though it's on TikTok.
Sure.
All right, so the most important part of the syndication, right? Well, besides the deal, is that going to be the operating agreement and that LP partner agreement, right, Corey?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's going to outline all of your rights of your distributions, voting rights, the sponsors' rights in this, and just how all of this is going to be managed, right? We really try to look at these essentially as like disagreements that you're outlining like up front, because we all are going to be like happy and stoked that, yeah, we're fired up, we're going to go in this and take down this 100-unit like deal. But then kind of what happens if something goes wrong, right? What happens if somebody, God forbid, dies in this kind of thing, right? You have to answer a lot of these questions all on the front end in that operating agreement and how this is structured out so that you've covered all of your bases before you're actually going to go into something like this.
And so distributions are going to be like, how are you receiving distributions of income from this asset while you still own it, right? What are the fees that the sponsor is charging, either for initiating this or operating this? There's different structures they could do. So to reiterate, right, our sponsor is the same term for general partner, right? And then voting rights as well. Like if you're in that, do you have any? Is it truly passive? Like what are your rights within the LLC, within the limited partnership?
Mm-hmm. Totally. So certainly a similar thing structured to a lot of your other setups, private funds, joint venture, private equity, venture deals. These entities are all really there just to protect both the sponsor, general partner, and then the members, the investors, again, if this goes south. I really just like to call these like disagreements to a degree, right? We're just outlining how is this going to go if this goes wrong. What happens if it goes right, but also we're going to make sure that we cover all our bases in case things go south.
Yeah. Next month, we're going to talk about taxes. We're going to go over wills. Really, I think just from now on, we're going to only talk about legal structures. You guys going to be here every month? I see a lot of happy faces.
Yes, no.
We're just eating our vegetables before we get to our dessert, guys. We'll be talking about making lots of money very soon.
Next month.
Did I see you raise your hand, Jeremiah?
Yeah, talk about making lots of money, and the first thing you're gonna wanna do is learn the tax code, so you're
Right.
actually gonna wanna start doing that.
Yeah.
And one of the big selling points on this from the investor side is it allows you to, I'll
Yeah.
just speak louder.
It won't show up on the. Yeah, it's a tough one. There you go, Jeremiah.
Thank you. Like I was saying, is one of the biggest things, if you're not worried about taxes, then you should probably come and talk to me, because it's one of those things that is your biggest expense as a business owner and as an investor. And one of the cool things about this structure is it allows your limited partners to do 1031 exchanges instead of having capital gains events. And that's what's really appealing to the people that's got the money that are gonna back your deals, is when it's structured this way. They're not worried about their money they're putting in with you. They're worried about the money they're gonna be getting out with you and how much they're gonna have to give Uncle Sam. This gives them the ability to roll it forward into your next deal.
I love that. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So to Jeremiah's point, right, if I'm getting great returns because I'm such a good GP, right, I'm going to want to come back to you again. And we've got structures like a 1031 that we've talked about in other meetings where we can defer capital gains tax.
But that's how you really attract the investors. Like, when people have got money, they want to protect it.
And so Jeremiah's saying that's the big selling point. If you're doing this is like, hey, this is a great tax avoidance strategy, just like opportunity zones or some of the other plays. That's how you can appeal to somebody there. Gotcha. So what's next, Corey?
Cool. Next, we're diving into just how these are really structured out.
Yep. So when you look at this, what an LLC and this limited partner agreement does is it allows the members to get a preferred return on their money year after year, and it also allows you the ability to participate on the upside profit. So it's a longer term play. It's going to incentivize them. Again, I want you to keep your money in this deal because we're going to continue to generate returns together. Which, right, if you keep your money in this deal, then I don't have to go recapitalize this deal immediately, right? And that long runway can be a competitive advantage with the syndication. We'll talk about those when we get in there, right? Is that, hey, I've got an exit strategy, because one of the big challenges sometimes that we talked about last month, right, is the financing side of these larger commercial deals.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Tell me about accredited investors, Corey.
Ooh, this is an interesting one, right? This is a topic that you see a lot.
Do we have any accredited investors in the room? Ooh, I see a couple hands up. 6 accredited investors in here.
All right.
All right.
So
Couple more there.
Yeah, so to really kind of outline what this is, these are to be considered an accredited investor by the SEC, you got to either have an income of at least $200,000 a year for the last 2 years, or if you're married, have a combined income of at least $300,000 a year for the last 2 years, or have a net worth of at least $1 million, excluding your primary residence, either individually or jointly with your spouse.
Now, we're talking generally, right? There are some exceptions in a syndication, just like there's some exceptions in a fund where non-accredited investors can participate. And I'll let Sean and Tillman dive into the weeds on that. If you have questions about it, let's ask them because they're actually running those plays. Mm-hmm. So if you qualify based on income, right? So part of the expectation there, just like with an underwriter's expectation, you're going to continue to make that money, right? Not just that it's a one-time windfall, but that you have an income that's tracking in that direction, right? Because the government is trying to protect you. And syndications are typically going to ask you for a letter. What's that letter going to say, Corey?
It's going to go ahead and just outline, like, those 2 years of tax returns. They're just validating all of your info. It's going to ideally come from your accountant. Yep. They can show everything on the front end, right? They're going to be vetting you as much as you're going to be vetting the deal. Like that general partner is going to be making sure that this person is accredited, that they're not going to be in any kind of like SEC violations.
Yep. And so they're going to ask a couple options there. They might ask you for that letter from your accountant and 2 years of tax returns, or there are some third-party sites there, right, that could verify your info, that could say, here's a directory of accredited investors, right? And they serve as a clearinghouse for that information, a trusted third party.
Totally.
All right. Let's bring Sean and Tillman up. Are you ready to learn some stuff? Yeah?
Beautiful.
Cool. Let's move this out of the way real fast. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yes.
Really fast.
Ooh.
Cheers.
One day you too can read PowerPoints
Switched over.
for fun and profit. I closed it.
Yep.
So if I move that, here, let me grab this one. Grab this one. We'll get started. Who's got questions? Anybody? Anybody? So I'll start making a list. What's your question, JT?
Ooh, careful.
I talked to Sean about depreciation.
Okay.
Just tell me how to go with that.
Depreciation? Yeah. Cool. Yes.
When you guys wanted us to set.
Probably here, like in the middle, man, because we can bring up your thing. Ideally, I have set.
Come on board, they'll all come on at once. You take on 5 and take on 2 more 3 months later, you get the funds. How does that complicate things? Bring them on later.
Hello. Some timeline. So for timeline, depreciation, people.
So for syndication, there is no collateral or anything with private money, right? Is there collateral, or if you lose, then you lose, right? So if an investor wants to invest 100,000, you're getting 14% return, which anybody would pay for syndication. Why not I just invest as a private money investor where I have a collateral as a single family? Wouldn't that be better?
So why would I? I'll let Sean answer that. I'm gonna think about how to phrase it. Remove this, Mr. King. All right. So I got a couple questions. One on depreciation, one on just timeline and participation. I have a question on the advantage of this versus private equity because of some different collateralization, right? Meaning that maybe like a private equity person might be more protected than a limited partner. So we'll talk about that. Any other questions anyone has right now that I want to make sure we answer? Yes.
I just want to know what sets apart a syndication from is the other form of LLC, is
So what's the difference between a syndication and a bunch of people just getting together and forming an LLC as members? Yeah, all right. So that's a great question. John, you want to take this one while John's getting the camera ready?
Sure. Okay, so the main difference, what you're talking about on a joint venture, in a joint venture, it's typically like a smaller group of people, and unless you bring 3 or 4 people to the table to have a lot of money, a joint venture is usually restricted by, how much money people can bring to the table. On a syndication allows a few people who don't have a lot of money to go after bigger assets. Like one of the ones that I'm working on right now is 1,002 units, $100 million deal. So the reason we can go after a $100 million deal is because we can go to a lot of people and raise money through syndication. I don't know 10 people that have $10 million to invest in a deal. So that doesn't work really good for a joint venture. So it allows people, it allows a group of people who don't have $1 million to get together and go after bigger assets. And I like bigger assets because it allows us to get deals where we can have professional management. I've come up through the ranks of doing like single family stuff, and I don't want to deal with tenants and toilets anymore. So I would rather deal with things that have professional management.
Jordan, does that answer your question? I can't see you back there. Yeah, fantastic, right? So it's scale, right? And that general partner, when you do this, has the ability to initiate, right? You need someone to take the initiative to drive the deal, and the general partner is able to initiate that and then reap the returns for being the one to get that ball rolling and do that legwork on underwriting the deal. So real fast, we've got Sean Thompson up here. We got Tillman Dunbar up here. Sean, you want to introduce yourself real quick and give a quick bio of who you are? We'll dive into your story here in a second.
So real quick, I've lived in Knoxville, the Knoxville market since 2000. And 2009, I started out with doing single family real estate. Always been very interested in doing real estate. Had an IT business and never liked doing IT, but always thought real estate was really cool. So started out doing single family and just kept kind of growing and got kind of bored and went on and bought a little office building, a little warehouse building. And I got up to where we were operating about 70, 71, 72 units and was going crazy dealing with tenants and everything. And one weekend I listened to Grant Cardone and decided to go down to one of his real estate seminars and found out the power of commercial multifamily and syndications, and it's like an addiction, disease. I've been hooked ever since, and don't want to do any more single family after I found out the power of commercial multifamily.
What year was that, Sean?
That was in December of 21.
Okay, so this is very, very recently.
Yeah, very recently.
I love it. So we're gonna go. We got two totally different journeys here, right? And so Tillman also same sort of timeline. You know, if you want to grab that from Sean. What I think we'll do here is give a quick overview, and we could jump into some slides here. Is Tillman really started the game just straight with syndications. Both ended up in some similar places, and they're going to talk about different aspects of this because of just Sean's portfolio. He's been able to participate in some different ways. But I think if you're looking to get started, if you don't know if you're sitting in this room and you want to have a completely different life in a couple years, you know, Tillman's a good friend of ours. Love to share kind of just, if you want to, you can jump in here and kick through like, hey, here's how we drove that.
Yeah.
So yeah, tell us a little bit about.
So I'll start off with my story. So partially true that of me jumping right into syndication. I did start kind of like many of you guys. I started on the flip realm, and I was hitting that really hard. I started in, January of 2021. I closed on my first flip, and in the span of 3 months, I was able to knock out 3 flips and made a significant amount of money, capital. But as you guys know, with flips, it takes a lot of day in, day out exhaustion just to make a project go. So at that time, I was a naval officer, fully active duty. So I was doing that and moonlighting as a flipper. And as you can imagine, I was kind of burning out really quickly. So I had a boss in the Navy. He was my direct supervisor, and he pulled me aside. He was like, Tillman, you're doing amazing things, right? You're churning and burning. First 3 to 6 months, you're killing it, but you're gonna burn yourself out. And I was like, no, I got this. You know, I'm young. I can figure this out. And he was like, I'm gonna make you rich. I said, how can you make me rich? I'm already on the path to, you know, I thought I had it all figured out. And he was like, I'll make you rich. So at that time, I didn't know. Him and his partners, other naval officers, were multifamily syndicators. So they, at that time, had about 400 units under management. And you know, at that time, I thought it was so far gone for me to do anything like that. So, anyways, I'll dive into my first deal a little bit more. But anyways, he grabbed my hand. He was like, "I'll walk you through your first deal." It ended up being a 16 unit, which I have today. I actually just refinanced it and was able to get a 1.5 million equity. And long story short, I had a boss who really walked me through the process and taught me the ins and outs of multifamily syndication. So started on the flip realm, was able to quickly transition to syndications only because I had someone who kind of guided my every move.
I love it. So let's start at the very beginning of that journey, because Sean, right, there's a couple ways to this path. Sean went to a seminar, went to Grant Cardone, you know, had that changed, and you had someone jump you in there. Let's walk through that, because I think this is a good example, because you got a visual example, and then I'd like to hear Sean kind of jump in with your first as well. Walk us through that very first one. Like, how did you, would everyone like to hear that? Like, how did you get it off the ground? Because I think that's the hardest thing, right? Is that those first couple steps? So yeah, walk me through that very first one.
Yeah, cool. So I mean, obviously my mentor told me exactly what I needed to do, but he pointed me in the right direction. We were just talking about it. Kind of told me what to do, but not how to do it initially. He was like, if you really want it, you'll figure it out. So I went to a couple kind of like this networking happy hours, and I kind of put my name out there, and I was like, hey, this is what I'm looking to do. Does anybody have a deal that I can buy? And obviously I was 26, 27 years old, brand new into the space, so no one kind of took me seriously. So I was able to write a couple LOIs on my first couple properties.
What's a LOI?
Oh, LOI is a letter of intent, right? Okay. So it's almost like in agents, it's like us writing an offer for a purchase agreement, right? So very similar, but in the multifamily space.
Awesome. And what is it? Is an LOI binding?
No, it's not binding. It's not. So you have a LOI.
Like a term sheet, if you heard that term before?
Like a term sheet, you have about 5 days for it to actually ratify. And at that point, you'll submit a purchase agreement. And that purchase agreement is what's binding to you. Of course, you have contingencies for that duration up until close, but you submit an LOI. agree on the terms of the deal, and then you submit a purchase agreement.
Where'd you
from there.
get that LOI? Like, where'd you find a copy of that document?
So actually, my mentor provided it to me.
Okay.
So he was able to show me the how, but I had to execute what to do.
Awesome. And so the LOI was spelled out the terms of the acquisition. So it's like a term sheet. So you're kind of pre-negotiating like you would, no different than presenting a verbal offer or shooting over something in a text or an email for negotiator, right?
Right, correct.
Gotcha. Cool.
Cool.
So you sent over a couple LOIs. How many did you send out before you got?
I sent out 3 before I even got any bites.
And how many properties did you look at to get to those 3?
Probably 50. So I cycled through 50, underwrote about 8 to 10 of them, and I found 3 that I really, really liked. And I was like, this is going to be it. And I submitted those LOIs. Actually, did you?
No.
Oh, okay.
What I want to know is, so you said you underwrote those because this is the stuff, right? So you looked at 50 properties. You had to find the 50. How did you find those 50?
Everywhere.
Everywhere. Okay. So
I-
what are some
I-
agents? Did you find was it
Zillow, Facebook Marketplace, Realtor.com,
investor groups?
investor groups,
Okay.
everything under the sun, Marcus and Millchap, anything I could find on Google that said commercial multifamily buildings, I was looking at.
How long did it take you before people started taking you seriously?
Probably 3 weeks of going every day hard. So 3 weeks to a month, I'd say.
And,
But that was
and how
every
many
day.
had you looked at by the time people started, like, you can come in a room and say, hey, I'm in this space, and people were like, okay, I'll go talk to this
50.
this kid.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
okay. 50.
So 50, so there you go, right? There's that first grind. How did you learn, and I want to go back to this, to where I started, because how did you learn how to underwrite those deals? Because you said your mentor told you how to figure it out.
So he sent me his software that he used for multifamily underwriting, and then I listened to a whole bunch of podcasts and kind of figured it out, plugged and played, and took pieces from a lot of people who were more savvy in the space than me, and kind of implemented and kind of figured it out from there.
Awesome. So I see that on the team you had a Class A contractor and an SEC attorney. Did you have those before you started sending the LOIs?
No.
Okay.
I got that after the LOI.
Got you. So right now you've just got your mentor's giving you, right? He's hey, here's how to underwrite. I give you the. You've been like searching for the deals all on your own.
Yep.
So all he gave you was basically a calculator and like a blank LOI.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Gotcha. Fantastic. That's all you needed to get started. Okay. So skip through. Let's talk about this one in Norfolk.
So essentially, like I said, this was like my 3rd LOI I submitted, and initially they didn't accept my LOI, but the buyer who they did accept was out of the country and couldn't get back to them quick enough, right? So the seller was on a timeline. He was trying 1031 exchange into another property, so he was on a really tight timeline to close this deal. So I was the backup offer, and they gave me a call and said, hey, the initial buyer we accepted isn't available. They couldn't reach him for a couple days. So they gave me a call, and I was able to get this. So they wanted 2.9 for the deal, and the LOI I submitted was at 2.5. And that's because the underwriting I was able to write, that's the only place it made sense for my numbers that I could actually pitch, right? So they're like, hey, hard set 2.9. That's initially why I didn't get the deal in the first place. And I was like, 2.5 is my number, and I felt really good about it. That's how I knew we could actually make it a win-win in the deal. Luckily, the universe put this deal in my lap, and I was able to get it for $2.5 million.
Awesome. And so we did this one last year. If you want to go back on YouTube, we talked about how to buy apartments. So if you're curious on some of that stuff, you want to do a longer deep dive, a full hour of what that looks like, what the due diligence looks like, what to look for, how it differs from residential. So you got that thing under. What was the timeline you had to complete the deal?
90 days.
So you had 90 days, and how much did you put down?
Me personally, I put $30K down of my own financing, and the raise on it was $850,000.
Okay. And so how did you structure that? Like, so to get the deal, you had $30K.
Mm-hmm.
Was there a window to get the full, that full earnest money amount down? Like, how'd you structure, what'd you need to actually secure the deal?
Yep.
How'd you find
So
that
from
capital?
day I submitted my LOI, I had 5 days to come up with the EMD. So that's once I submitted my EMD. After that 5 days, that's when I was able to submit a purchase agreement. And then after that, I had from the initial purchase agreement ratification until closing to raise the funds.
Gotcha, because that was for the, and how much was the earnest money deposit on this one?
What was it? It's 25K, so it was only 1%, so it's
Gotcha.
25K.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you had that, you covered that yourself, and then you had the rest of those, you had 90 days from ratification, because you had to submit it up front to go do your capital raise. Right. Okay,
So
awesome.
yeah, but this deal was, kind of what propelled me to, like he said, become addicted to the grind that is multifamily syndication, because all the way up until the 11th hour, literally an hour before closing, I was $150,000 short of my capital raise, and by the grace of God, my mentor was able to scrounge up 150K from me from an investor that had invested with him on one of his deals. So literally, I'm at the closing table, not knowing where my last 150K is coming from. And I don't know if he's watching, Jonathan knew. That was really a game changer for me. So I was sweating bullets, as you can imagine. I don't know where I'm going to come up with this. I think the deal's going to fall apart. And, I get a call from a guy in Utah, and he's like, hey, I'm willing to fund your last 150K of your deal. And I was able to sign on that day and, walk away with my first property.
When did your earnest money go hard in that deal? When did it become non-refundable? Because I imagine that period had passed, right? So you had 25K on the line that day.
Yeah, so after my contingency period, so we had a 21-day contingency period, and after that passed, that's when it went hard.
Okay, and then how'd you find, you mentioned two other components in your team, right? You had a mentor, you had a Class A contractor. What's a Class A contractor, Tillman?
Class A is a general contractor. Essentially, he's the guy who's able to submit permits, write the scheme, submit to the city, all that good stuff, and then, as you guys know, subcontract out any jobs under him. So whether that's painting, plumbing, roofing, whatever it is, but the Class A is the top guy who's able to actually submit the paperwork to the city officially.
So there's grades of contractors, right? Not every GC is rated to do projects of a certain size. So a Class A contractor is somebody who can do these larger projects. Is that accurate?
That's very accurate.
And then how'd you find him, and how'd you find your SEC attorney? Where did you pick him up in the process?
Yeah, so Class A was through events like this, just real estate networking events, and cycling through many of contractor through my very flip projects, and just kind of vetting, painfully vetting some guys. That's how I was able to find the right one. And then the SEC attorney actually was forwarded to me. It was my mentor's SEC attorney that he used, and still very good friend and partner to this day. He's helped me on all my syndications to date, for sure. So amazing guy.
Who were the people in the room that said they were interested in some mentorship and offering some mentorship? I saw some hands go up. Well, like Henry's in the back, Chris is, these are very shy mentors, by the way, guys. They kind of want to mentor. No, they're willing to answer some questions. Invaluable, right? If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together, which I think is a theme of syndication.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Who's got some questions? Because I want to go through Sean's experience as well. Charles here.
Talking about preps earlier. Talking about prefs earlier, you said that last dude came in with 150K. Do you have to offer everybody the same pref, or can you offer that guy, be like, hey, you help me out at the end?
So the coolest thing about syndications, and Sean will speak to this, it's as creative as you want to make it. So it's not a one-size-fit-all type of thing, right? So I was able to offer my regular investors 6% pref, right, flat. When he came in at the end, obviously he's carrying a note. So I really offered him different terms, and it was the term on the 150K note, vice the pref that everybody else. So he had, lack of a better term, he almost had first position of investors. So any profits that came in, it was going to him first before any investor came out. So, and I was able to delay. I pushed it out to where, it would be a balloon payment at my refi. I actually just refied. actually 2 months ago. So that was awesome. Thank God for that. But so that's it's as creative as you want it, and that's why I love syndication. Is because it's not one size fit all.
And I know it's Danny, right? Yeah. So I know Danny had asked a similar question, right? He asked about timeline. He said, "Hey, when you're doing this, is there just one window that you can have people join this, or can it be rolling? Even maybe after the fact? Like, is that also flexible?"
Yes, super flexible. So like for my second deal, I don't know if we have time to get into, but I did my initial raise of $700K. And I knew that was going to get me across the finish line, but I knew I needed to do CapEx to the property. So I literally just did another
What's CapEx, tell me?
capital expenditures. So like construction costs, rehab costs, money to fix up your properties, essentially. But I just did one for $50K, and that's going to allow us to force appreciate the property. So we're going to do add a laundry room, update some of the units, be able to drive rent up a little more, which will obviously appreciate the property. But yeah, I just did it, and that was 9 months after I closed on my property initially. So again, you can be as creative as you want, and you can kind of bend the deal to how you need it to make it work for not only you but your investors, most importantly, and make sure they get the most returns.
Are those two syndications, or did the second round go into the first one?
So it would just be into the first initial. So when you're talking to your SEC attorney, they dictate the percentages, however much is left over, and obviously everyone has to agree to it. But you're able to talk to the attorney, and they can restructure the deal, and everyone signs off on it, and then you're good to go.
So the question was asked: is that a second syndication? For me, what I heard is that the same limited partner agreement. Is that the same operating agreement? And yes, the answer was, hey, we can modify that agreement because it's in the interest of all parties.
Exactly.
Just the same, like, I'm sure all parties were happy to play that pref when it was, we get nothing, or we let this person come in, save the day at the last minute. We all hopefully make some money together.
Absolutely.
If you want to, I think it'd be good, because I like to kick Sean there. What were the terms? Pitch me this deal, right? I'm an LP. Walk me through. Is it a straight split or is it a waterfall? Walk me through that, and then we'll let Sean talk about his first one. I think we can compare and contrast and dive in and get really in the weeds with everybody, if that's cool. Sound good?
Yeah, so my flavor is I like to do waterfall splits, and my biggest thing is, regardless of how hard I work to put deals together, none of my deals are possible without the investors, right? Without capital, I can't do anything, right? It doesn't matter how smart I think I am, doesn't matter how hard I work. The investors are the most important things to me, right? So I'm big on investors win first. So I love the waterfall split, right? So like you were saying earlier, it incentivizes me to do my job that much better because I'm not making any money unless my investors get paid out. So,
walk me through on this one, if you remember, what was the structure?
Yeah, so the structure was a 6% pref. And at that time, it was a cooler climate as far as returns in the marketplace. And then I did a 70-30 waterfall split. And then based on my wicket at an 8% cap.
So wicket's another term for gate,
yeah,
right? Because they're synonymous. Like if you play cricket, yep.
And then if I hit 8%, that's when we overflow into a 50% split. So that's kind of how I structured my first deal as far as investors.
So you had two tiers, 8% threshold, 70-30, and then it's going to go to a 50-50. Awesome. What about fees, anything like that you were doing on the front end?
Yeah, so the only fee I had associated with the front end was the acquisition fee, and that was a 2%, and that would go to myself as a GP. So for both of my deals, I've been the sole GPs on them. The second one, I got a little creative, and I offered the more heavier capital investors percentages of my GP. Again, like kind of getting creative, right? So I had, on my second deal, I had someone come in with over half the capital raise, right? They came in with like 450. So I was like, if you're getting that, have a percentage of GP, kind of incentivize them that way. But
and so this one closes November 2021. Yep. You just refi. So by charging, I'm guessing here, by charging that fee, cool, I've given myself some capital where I can go run this project, right? It's just a different form of like pulling capital out of the project, right? There's a certain amount that's going to kick off from this. I'm going to choose to take some on the front end because that's going to give me the ability, right, to go focus on the project and get paid immediately for my returns.
Right.
Gotcha.
And for this deal, I was able to, because we force appreciated through rents and everything like that, we refied it.
What's forced appreciation? Tell me.
Forced appreciation is just either rental increases, driving up the rents, which will drive the value of the property overall. Why? Because your NOI will increase. NOI is net operating income. And when lenders underwrite your properties to see what the value is, they normally look at how much money is that property generating, right? So they really don't, it's different from residential because they don't care about how pretty your property is, how you can have the ugliest building in the world, but if it's cash flowing really, really good, that'll drive value up. So,
So if I can jump in here, right, just to give an overview, when you buy a residential house and the bank does an appraisal, they're doing a sales comparable approach, right? They're going and looking at other homes that are comparable and they're adjusting them according to the uniform standards and principles of appraisal practice. That's what they're looking at, not price per square foot. Like they're going and doing this. If you get into like DSCR or something, we're starting to look at more of an income-based approach. Any commercial deal is going to be driven off of an income-based approach. So when you go and increase the income, it forces an appreciation in the property, right? It automatically drives it up. If I'm doing a residential, I really need someone else to sell if one of my buyers is going to use conventional financing. We all get that. You don't want to be the best performing property on the block. You may have no comps, which could hurt your exit strategy.
Right.
In this case, my income, right, is driving that up directly. I don't have to worry about comps as much.
Right.
So, yes, Wall.
Just a quick question. What on a fixed price? What was your interest rate on it? Remember?
So the question Walla asked, just for everyone at home, is on that 6 pref, what was the interest rate? So he's asking what was the interest rate on that acquisition?
Yeah, so I had a bridge loan, so I tied in my CapEx up front. It was $150K in CapEx to my loan, so my rate on that was 7.99. And I just refied into a 6.25 rate, and it's agency. So it's locked in fixed for 30 years and much better terms. But I locked in originally a 18-month bridge loan.
When you say agency, meaning it's like a
Government backed.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's a government
so
backed.
Fannie and Freddie.
Yeah, the Fannie and Freddie multifamily there. And just for anyone who's new, didn't know any of these terms like I did when I started, capital expenditures and your CapEx, that's just repairs to the property, right? So when we talk about cap, like what's my cap, what's my return, right? Maybe it's cash on cash, depending on how you calculate it. We've talked about this in some other ones we've done before. CapEx is going to be what's my capital expenditure, and usually that's going to be measured as a ratio. Like I don't want to be spending too much compared to like the purchase of it, but it can also just be a dollar amount as well.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So, and just to finish off, so as you can see here, I started off with $400K in equity on day one. But since I did the forced appreciation on day one of me purchasing the property, it was fully occupied. I raised rents by $450, right? So a lot of people told me that'd be super aggressive, but I only lost 2 tenants, right? So I was like, hey, they were significantly under market value of rentals. So
What was your average rents going in?
average rents going in was about $1,050, and I raised them to $1,550.
What price was that per square foot?
The question is, what price was that per square foot?
I don't remember at this time if you could calculate. So they're like square footage wise, they're like $1,350 per unit, and then divide that by 1050. I think we did that backwards. I think you do 1050 divided by
Well, you paid $156K per unit. So
Yeah.
divide that by the square footage.
I don't know. We'll figure this. I'm doing other math. Like I'm not going to do the math.
I'll
up
think
here.
about it.
I'm like, sorry. You can run it, Sean. I was doing the math. I was trying to look at the forced appreciation math. So I know something else.
So
Sorry.
some of what we do is like single family. Some of what we do is like single family. You can compare some of it. So if I do quick math on this, you paid $156,000 per unit, right? So give us an idea. What's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath house going for in that neighborhood?
So in that neighborhood, 2-bed, 2-bath is going for about 180, 190 in that neighborhood. And usually I like to, the rule of thumb is stay at 100K per door, 110, 120, don't go over that. But contrary to his point, I don't really underwrite in terms of residential. And I knew the market well enough to where I knew this was significantly below the market value, right? So not only were they 2-bed, 2 baths, but they're 1350 square feet. You're not finding anything like that in this area. It's in a prime location, right downtown, next to everything, next to our naval bases, right in the prime location. So that's why I wasn't worried about driving the rent $500 up on day one.
This was
So
the acquisition price per square foot.
yeah,
Yeah, so his acquisition price per square foot is $122 a square foot.
yeah.
So take a look at how beautiful that property is. $156,000 a unit. That's a steal.
Yeah. So, oh, yes.
So it's 40%, 50% increase in what was your value at the end?
So I actually
So the question was, what was the value at the end?
So I actually it just appraised for 3.9, I want to say. I just saw in the building itself, I have $1.5 million in equity in it, just from forced appreciation and rent. So, so I was super happy about that. Obviously, my investors are happy about that, right? But like I said, I was uber aggressive up front and went through some growing pains, right? But I was willing to flush out some of the tenants who didn't need to be there, and then kind of now we are seeing the benefits of the work I did up front.
Tillman, how long did it take you to raise rents to where you gained $1 million in the value of that property?
All across the board, it took me about 6 months. Yeah, so day one, I put out the notice, and New Year's Day is when we were enforcing it. And then 3 months after that, April, we were fully stabilized to where we had 16 of 16 occupied, all at our average rent price of $1,550.
So I need to ask this question, and Sean's going to share his forced appreciation story, but I have to stand up for this. Who would like to make $1 million in 6 months?
How many of you think you can do that with a single family home?
Yeah.
What's that question, Sean?
How many of you guys think you can do that with a single family home?
So Sean, walk us through your first one, like how you jumped in, because what I want to hear, and thank you, back to you, Tillman, right? So thanks for going deep on this. Sean, to recap, right, been playing in the game for a while, been investing for a while, goes into, and we're going to get to a couple of these questions here when Sean's up here, because I like, we can go deep on some of that stuff with taxes and depreciation, and there's a couple other questions here. But you come back, what's the next steps? I've heard of some pieces of this. What'd you do to get into the game?
So at the time, I was doing a lot of single family stuff. We were running about a little over 70 units. I was helping some other folks that were investing. We were running their stuff, and I was running about 70 units, 70, 71, somewhere right around in there. And I was just frustrated. I was just to the point where I didn't feel like I wanted to go faster, and I didn't want to deal with tenants. And I'm like, there's got to be a better way. So it was in November of 2021. You know how wet and dark it gets here, especially that November is a wet November. And so Grant Cardone had a thing on a Saturday for like 5.5 hours. I didn't particularly like Grant at the time, but I thought I can learn something from this guy. I didn't like how flashy he was. I'm not a flashy kind of guy. My wife has improved my image quite a bit. I used to buy everything at Walmart. So
It's a pretty flashy shirt.
Yeah. This is her taste, not mine. Like she's like, you will buy this and you will wear it. I says, yes, honey, yes, dear. So she picks everything out, because if I picked it out, it'd be Wranglers, and I wouldn't look good. So lipstick on a pig, you know. So anyway, so I watched Grant over a weekend, and he had a deal for like $1,000. You can come down to his real estate summit, and he'd give you $1,000 in one of his deals. And I'm thinking, hey, I get to write this thing off as a educational trip. Hey, wife, do you want to go to Miami? She's like, sure. So we went down to his 3-day real estate seminar, and he basically went through that formula and underwrote some of this commercial real estate, and explained your next $1 million is just around the corner from you. You can literally go find a 32-unit apartment building and raise the rent just over $100, and you have just forced the appreciation of a commercial piece of real estate and made yourself $1 million. And I could run, the math is not hard to run through, but basically that's his claim to fame. Your next $1 million is just around the corner from you. And I had looked at a 16-unit apartment building over here off of Kingston Pike. The guy wanted too much money for it. There was a bunch of people looking at the deal. I had walked away from it because he wanted $2.2 million for a 16-unit apartment building, and the thing wouldn't cash flow. He's only charging $795 a month for 2-bedroom, bath and a half units right over here next to Fort Sanders West. And I'm like, I didn't have the tools in my toolbox. I didn't understand, I can't make this work. Like, it wouldn't even cash flow. Everybody looked at it, was like, you got to do some owner carryback or something. We can't make this deal work. And he's like, I'm not going to do that. I've got my price. The guy was 80-some years old. He built the apartment buildings. He had them built himself. He's a single owner from the beginning. And I've got my price, and I'm not coming off of it. So I went to Grant's thing. I didn't understand how all this worked. He ran through, and I did a quick bit of math, and I knew that I could, probably the market rent on those apartments was probably somewhere around $1,500 a month. And I was like, if I could just figure out how to make this work, that's my next $1 million. So I called my banker. I said, is there anything we can do to work something out on this? Take some, will you all work with me? Will you take my other properties and work something out with me? She goes, I'll talk to my boss. I think we can work this out. She sent me an email saying, hey, the bank's going to back you. We'll take some of your other properties, but you're going to have to raise the rents pretty quick, and your tenants aren't going to be happy with you. And so I did the math real quick, and I figured out I could do really well on this property. And so I bought it for $2.2 million, and I sent everybody a notice I was raising the rent. I'm sure my name was mud for a little bit, but I raised the rent from $795 to $1,300. I gave everybody 90 days notice, and just by doing that, I raised the value of that property $1 million.
So Sean, what were your holding? And this is why I wanted to have two, because there's two different journeys here, right? Tillman's coming in. Tillman's got 30,000. He's young guy, kind of like willing to put it all on the line. Almost loses 25 of his 30, right? How many assets did you have when you went to the bank, roughly? Like, kind of what would you hold? What were you holding then?
Well, we had I was operating about 3 houses for other people, so I had somewhere around 68 doors.
Yep.
I had some office space and warehouse space. I had a little 9-unit apartment building. That was my first foray into apartment, and I really didn't go looking for that one. On that one, my banker called me and said, Sean, I know you do stuff over in Blount County. And this is the importance of having good relationships with people. She said, Sean, I know you're doing stuff in Blount County. Would you like to have 9 apartments over there? And I'm like, heck yeah. And she said, we just had an investor paid to do all the inspections on these units. We've gone through it. We've underwrote the deal. Everything was approved, and she walked away from it. I can literally give it to you. I've already got you approved for it. All you have to do is say yes and then take over the deal in her spot and get the seller to agree to that. I'm like, I can do that. So I called the seller, and my realtor, Tom, back there has been instrumental in helping me get some of this stuff done. Tom and I called. We were like,
hey, Tom, raise your hand. Everyone's trying to figure out who Tom is.
Yeah, Tom was my single family mentor. He's been
a
big part of where I'm at. But we were like, we called up Mr. Seller, and we're like, look, I got some bad news for you, and I got some good news for you. Because he hadn't heard yet. I'm like, the bad news is your seller backed out on you. The good news is you can close on the same day for the same amount. All we have to do on the sales agreement, I've already been approved. It's the same bank. It's already been appraised. Everything's exactly the same. Close the same amount the same day. All you have to do is replace this lady's name with mine. And he couldn't say no. It was a no-brainer. There was like 11 more people lined up behind me on that deal, and I literally just stepped to the front of the line and something I didn't even know about because my banker called me about it. And that was my first foray into apartments. And then I was like, it's so much nicer. I had a maintenance guy and some other folks. It's so much nicer when my people aren't driving, a couple hours a day bouncing from house to house to house, when they can go one place. And I can concentrate on my efforts, like if I want to drive by and check on my property, that I don't have to spend 4 hours on a Saturday driving around, look at all these places. I can go to a few places instead of a bunch of places. So since then, I've been kind of selling out of my single family stuff and trying to concentrate more on multifamily.
So it sounds like Sean might have some assets to let go if you're looking to buy. Walk us through the same way that Tillman did. Let's get into the nuts and bolts of that first deal.
So for me, well, as far as like the apartment deal,
Yeah, that apartment deal
Okay,
that you
so-
raised, so what'd you have to put down? Like what are the terms you had to put down, and what'd you offer to your LPs?
my first apartment deal, I did it conventionally. Like I did it on my own.
Not the first apartment deal, sorry, the first syndication.
The first syndication.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so Tillman started in a really good place because I like. It took me a while to wrap my head around all this work, so I really dug in after Jerome Powell started raising rates. As soon as he did that, it killed a bunch of multifamily deals because Tillman was able to get his debt. Like right now, bridge loans are much higher than 8%. Bridge loans are up around. A bridge loan in the commercial world is like.
If you don't know, which is cool, we got some very brand new folks here. Jerome Powell is the chairman of the Federal Reserve.
Yeah. So when the Federal Reserve started raising rates, it killed a lot of multifamily stuff, a lot of commercial deals. So when somebody talks about in commercial stuff, if they talk about bridge loans, it's the same thing as hard money in the single family world. So when you start talking hard money, the rates are really, really high. Those are riskier type deals. So a bridge loan right now, you're talking, probably like 12%. So it's really high up there. So I got started, really dug in after the commercial deal flow started dying. And so I was struggling. I was struggling to find something and to be able to really get recognized in the syndication world, you have to have done a deal, and to do a deal as a general partner, as a GP on a GP team. So I had been networking with a bunch of people, and there was a bigger group that was struggling to get a deal done. Like Tillman did at the very end, needed money to close the deal. And so they approached me and they said, it was a substantial amount of money. They were like, if you can put a big chunk of money into this, we'll bring you on to the GP team. So I actually kind of bought my way into my first GP deal. I didn't work at it like a lot of people did. I kind of bought my way into it, but it gave me an inside look at how the whole process works. So that's how I got started, because I was already, I'd already done, the 16 unit on my own, and I did a 12 after that
Well,
one.
how long had you been investing at that point?
Because
you went to that, that was 2021. The fall of 2021 is when you went and the light bulb went off.
Yes.
When did you start doing flips? When did you start as an investor?
Oh, I really got started as really serious about being an investor back with my first single family back in 2009. I've done flip houses.
Yeah.
I think I got started in maybe 2012, 2013, started doing flip houses. I flipped about 50 houses. I've done about 100 different pieces, over 100 different pieces of property I've been in and out of, and I've bought land and subdivided land. I've done. I owned a trailer park. I had a horrible experience owning a trailer park for a while, and I've done a bunch of stuff on my own. I figured out that the only thing that's separating us from being like the next Donald Trump for real estate is knowledge and money. And everybody runs out of money eventually on real estate. And one of the ways that the little guys can play in the realm with the bigger guys is this syndication thing. The syndication thing allows smaller people to pool our money and buy bigger resources. And the bigger resources, the big benefit to that is the forced appreciation through fixing up the property. We can go in and fix the property, raise the rents. It's not like a single family where you go in on a block and you improve your house and all the rest of the houses aren't improved. So therefore you're raising the property value of everybody else on the street, but yours isn't going up that much because a lot of it goes off a price per square foot. So if you live in a neighborhood where you have the same 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom, 2-bath house as everybody else, and they're kind of cookie cutter type houses, and you fix your house up better than the rest of them, then you're not going to get as much appreciation as the guy has the worst house on the street the saying always is you want to own the worst house on the street because everybody else improves it. It pulls the value of your property up. Well, commercial property is completely different. Commercial property, they loan you money on the cash flow on the property. They're loaning money against a stream of income. They don't, like you said, you can have the worst looking property, and as long as it's bringing in money, that's all the bank cares about.
So Sean, this is a perfect cue up because Pete asked me this question. So why would I'm a limited partner. You guys seem fantastic. You're doing great. You seem like real swell guys. But why would I want to come in as a limited partner as opposed to doing putting my money into private equity where I could also get, a pretty good return and I have an opportunity to collateralize the debt and protect my downside, right? So I can come in and put a lien against the property. I'd love to hear both of your answers. So why would I want to come in and participate with you instead of just going and putting out some hard money on another asset?
You want to go first? Or you want me to?
You can go first.
Okay. So first of all, on these assets, I've been going after a little bit bigger stuff than what Tillman's going after. The more units you have, we're going after stuff like it's 100 plus units. If you can get up into bigger unit counts, those properties can afford to pay for professional management. You can have professional managers come in there and manage the property. And then you have, when you get into these bigger assets, the management team, you have experienced people on the management team, and basically you are a completely passive investor. So you put money in the deal. Our target is to double your money in 5 years. So in your case, if you put 100,000 in, we want to return at least 200,000 to you or close to 200,000 to you. By year 5, you'll get some cash flow along the way. Then when we sell it or refinance it, you'll get you'll get a big bump at the end. That's part of it. You'll have professional management running it. Hopefully you'll pick a GP team that has some experience with an experienced asset manager. You're getting into a higher level of somebody who's accomplished a lot. You spread your risk out. So if you invest in, say, a 120 unit deal, you're spreading your risk among 120 units. You have access to different markets and to bigger, nicer areas than you normally would with a single family. And then one of the biggest things that you get the benefit of is depreciation. So if you have a deal where it's 70% debt and 30% equity, which is the investors, the bank does not get to take advantage of the depreciation. So all the depreciation, 100% of the depreciation only goes to 30% of the property, the 30% of the investors that put the money in. I actually know of a deal where people have put money in a deal and they got 98.8% of their money back in the first year of depreciation. That is direct money off of your taxes. So it would be like I know a guy put $125,000 in a deal and got 98.8% of that back in a K1, which is a deduction on your taxes. And if you don't get to take it all the first year, you can roll it over to the next year. I mean, who wants to get almost all their money back where they don't have to pay taxes on something? So if you have a $50,000 tax bill that you can invest it and get maybe $35,000, $40,000 off your taxes that year. That's a deal. That is not something that you can get doing private equity and some of these other things.
And then Tillman, what's your take on this?
No, very, very well said, Sean. I mean, that was going to be my biggest takeaway. Just the tax write-offs alone. And that's kind of the biggest pitch I have to my investors, especially when going after bigger fishes. I just lay it out simply. I would say, hey, the first year we're going to do a cost seg, and here's what it's going to look like when we depreciate. And then that's when everyone's eyes.
Tell them what a cost seg.
Yeah, what's a cost segregation?
So cost segregation. So essentially, it's a forced depreciation. Generally, over 28 and a half years, your property, they say real estate depreciates over that time. So with a cost segregation analysis, you're realizing the 28 and a half years of depreciation all in that first year or up to when you do that cost seg. You can also backtrack to when you bought the property. So let's say in year 3, you want to go back and do a cost segregation. They'll realize the depreciation of that first 3 years, all the capital expenditures you put in to improve the property, anything like that. And then you're able to write that off over the span of 28 and a half years. So that's why when Sean says, he knows some people who in the first year are getting 98.5% of their money returned, it's because those general partners force depreciated the asset over the lifespan of 28 and a half years and returned that back to the investor. So I don't know any other kind of asset or, avenue or vehicle that can do that for you. And that's a clean write-off, legal, on your tax returns that you won't have to pay. And like he said, if your taxes aren't covered in that first year, you can just roll it to year 2. You can roll it to year 3 until you exhaust all of that depreciation write-off.
Who in here? We're gonna ask some questions here. I see
got
waving
two
2 dudes. Who in here is so who in here is a small business owner? Who owns a small business?
Yeah.
Who in here is a real estate investor? Get your hands up. You own a business, right? You own a business. So if you're new to this, you don't know this, right? I didn't know this for years because I was like, why do I have to learn about taxes? I don't have any money, right? Don't have to pay taxes if you don't make any money, right? And I didn't make a lot of money for a long time. I didn't think money was important, so I didn't make money. Did lots of other stuff.
Yeah.
So if I own that, what I'm trying to do is just any business you own as a professional investor, right? I've got revenue coming in. I want to spend that revenue before I pay taxes, right? I want to spend pre-tax dollars. I don't want to pay taxes on it and then pay all my bills. So it's just another way of like, hey, I've got money coming in. I'm putting it into an asset that's going to gain in value for me, and I'm able to write that off and not pay taxes on it because I didn't realize that. But it's another way to really transfer wealth back and forth. Right. And so I think Jeremiah had a great point here, right? The point of this game is tax avoidance, and the tax code, I think we'll have Charles Shapiro come out and talk to us one day, is all about like the government incentivizing, right, where they want that money to go to avoid taxes. Right. So I saw, Pete, you had a question. What's your question, man?
So if I understand this correctly, I get the tax benefits syndication-wise. So you're making your money on the back end, right? That's where you're making. Right. So in your example, when you refi that apartment thing, your LPs, what was your COC returns for your LPs on that one? Cash on cash.
So our average cash on cash, I think, was 22.5%. And kind of like he said, so what I pitched was a 2x multiplier. Which is kind of standard, which is you put 100K in, you're going to get 200K out. And by the time we're done with this, it's probably going to be a 2.5x multiplier. So that means over a span of 18 to 24 months, they're 2.5x in their money of their initial investing, all while being able to write off a lot of that income that they saw because of the cost segregation we did.
So your investors made 22%?
Yeah.
Yeah. How many phone calls did they take for that?
0.
How many tenants called and complained?
0. So
how many people out there making 22% on single family and still take phone calls?
So yeah, and that's I'd say the biggest thing is, like he said, we are shouldering all the risk for you. And as you know, like if it's a KP or the GPs, we're co-guaranteeing or guaranteeing that loan. So let's say this property, I do a terrible job and I'm on the hook for $2.5 million. I have to shoulder that myself, where the LPs have no risk to them of shouldering that debt, right? You might be out 100K, but you're not on the hook for $2.5 million, right? So that's a kind of good little overhead that, GPs are shouldering that risk and protecting the LPs from any kind of bad things that could happen.
So what syndication does, right, it's a vehicle for you if you find, right? So the reason why you come to a place like this is we're going to give you the framework. So now you've got a framework to understand this. We put you in the room with people that you can have a personal relationship with, where you can ask some questions. I know both Tillman and Sean. If you hit them up, you could ask some questions when you run across this stuff. Hey, I'm looking at this. What do you think? Does this make sense? Because Sean's, please send me deals. Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I want to come invest with you. Right. And I see David's back there. Right. David's invested on this deal that Sean has through another guy in the Grid Investor Network. Kevin Kohler down in Fort Lauderdale is a genius.
Who I met through Justin.
Is a genius at finding on-market MLS deals. He will call me and tell me all about what's happening here in our market. And he's in Fort Lauderdale, the most competitive MLSs in the country. He's got more agents than anyone else. So every investor that doesn't buy deals on the MLS, cool, I guess you hate money, right? Like Corey just bought a duplex on the MLS for $185. Met someone yesterday, bought a duplex on the MLS last month it It was kicking off $2,400 a month. The agent had no idea to price it. Bad agents are your best friends, guys. So this is a way for you to participate, right, in some of the structures on a large scale. You talked about Donald Trump, large scale real estate developers who are playing in 100 unit plus. This is a way for us to get outsized returns because we're playing in structures that institutional investors play in, right? We have insurance funds. Those are the kind of people that are buying apartment complexes. So walleye, so you had a question. If you're asking a question, grab both of these. And I know that Charles had a question.
So, you know, you're talking about risk compared to the LP. So as a general, you technically don't have the risk, right? It's an LLC, it's a separate LLC, so you lose whatever you put in it and your time, but there's nothing past that.
Well, it depends on who is the key principal in it and whether it's a recourse or non-recourse loan. So anything below 6 million is a recourse loan.
Okay.
So he was on the hook for that.
Yeah, exactly. So kind of like Sean just said, so for most of my deals, I was the sole GP. You know, usually it's teams of people, or you might bring someone in who might sign for that loan or be the key principal. For me, I was the key principal on all these, so I am directly on the hook for that 2.5 million. And on my other deal, 2.3 million. You know, I'm directly on the hook for that.
So you were new, you didn't have the money. How did you get approved for that?
So kind of like what, you know, Sean did on his deal. My mentor, I was able to leverage his experience and his SCREO, so a schedule of real estate owned. So we submitted that. You know, that way they could say, hey, this guy, you know, he doesn't directly have experience, but he has someone who's going to be helping him along the way who is very experienced. So that's kind of how I was able to leverage his experience with that.
Sean, can you, this is Rick, because you're doing a deal here, can you talk about being a key principal? Because that's the same, similar to what that guy was doing for you.
Yeah, so basically, the key principal, and sometimes you have more than one key principal, they're like the main sponsor on a deal. They're the ones that have enough assets to cover the value of the loan. So a bank will not loan you money unless you have assets that are at least equal to or more than the amount of the loan. And then the other thing, you probably don't want to invest with general partners that don't heavily invest in their deal. So like the deal that David and I are on, by the time I get done, I'm gonna have $250,000 of my own money in that deal.
So like his deal?
I'm sorry?
Like his deal?
No, I mean, it's a different game. I mean, his mentor stepped up and helped him, but if something happened and went wrong, the bank was gonna come after that guy's assets, and you have to pledge personally for that. So they were gonna come after, his house and stuff, so.
2 questions. First off, best case scenario, you raise the rents because they're under market. The other scenario, obviously, is you're doing CapEx, fixing the place up. How does that look? And then the exit strategy for a GP, I guess you're looking to build your personal portfolio or your personal business portfolio after refinance or sale of the property, and then you take the equity out that's left, or what is the exit strategy for the GP?
Okay, can you say your first question again?
First question was, best case scenario, you're just raising the rents. That's not always doable unless you just find a hell of a deal.
Right.
How does it look numbers wise? You're talking about 22% when you're doing CapEx and stuff like that. Because I'd say that's more common. You have to do renovations and stuff to raise it, or justify straight up, hey, we're gonna raise your rent, getting people on board with doing that.
So kind of like I mentioned originally, I had to look at 50 deals to get to 10 and then to submit on 3, right? You're gonna look at a lot of terrible deals. So the biggest thing is finding the deals that work for your numbers, and every GP kind of has a bottom line of what they feel comfortable with. Everybody has a different level of risk. So whatever numbers work for you, that's how you attack that deal. So you're gonna have to do CapEx maybe. You're gonna maybe only raise rents $100. Maybe a deal you'll be able to exit in 3 years, maybe it's 7 years. So every deal is different, but you have to dive deep in that underwriting. So it's grueling. It's a lot of deals out there, but not every deal is, good. You just have to be conservative and make sure the deals you're going after the numbers work, and it'll not only work for you, but your investors, most importantly. And then,
Okay.
and then the second question, the exit strategies. Yeah, so essentially our exit strategies is refi. Hopefully you hope that you built enough equity at the refinance that you're getting the investors all their initial promised returns and kind of cycling them out the deal. If not, you'll keep them in the deal until the sale of the property, right? So I think you said something about our personal portfolio.
Yeah, are you trying to build your own, like, are you trying to refinance, pay them back, and then you keep it as your type thing?
So for those playing at home, the question he's asking is, as a GP, you want to invest as well. So how are you building your own portfolio? Are you trying to refi, your partners out of it so you can hold on to that? Or are you saying, hey, I'm going to take my capital at the sale of this property and roll it into assets? Like, how are you personally building your portfolio?
Yeah, so like for me, for this first deal, I'll probably never sell this deal. Like, this is a gem, right? I'm about to cycle out my investors now, and man, I'll be able to net close to 20 or 25K a month, on this property, right? I'll probably never sell this deal. It's a gem, and I don't know. But my second property, my goal is to refinance, sell the property, cycle that in, 1031 into something bigger, and keep that cycle. But this one, my first one, so it's twofold. My first one, probably keep forever, cycle out the investors, I'll hold that on. Second one, cycle out the investors, on sale, roll into something bigger.
And so we're going to wrap up here in a couple minutes. We'll stay here. We can answer questions, but I know some folks got sitters, want to get out of here. But I do.
Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and to keep in mind, 'cause I know you said about being difficult, right? To go back to our numbers, looked at 50 properties, wrote 3 LOIs, wrote an offer for 2.5 on a 2.9, first deal fell apart and got it. So it's right? Yeah, you got to sift to find treasure. No different than spamming, right? Cash offers.
So was your question just mainly for him?
Just general.
Okay.
Adam had a question, right? So he said, when you're advertising for this, when you're looking for limited partners, how is that different than looking for someone who's in a joint venture? Like, what are the considerations, or how are you approaching that process?
Well, when people come into this as limited partners, first of all, we can gather a bunch of people who have as little as like $50,000. So, like if you were going to take a bigger deal down, the deal that David and I are on right now is about a $17.5 million deal. So you couldn't get enough people at $50,000 and $100,000 for it to make sense to do a joint venture on something like that. And the limited partners don't really have a say in what's going on. Can you imagine? Do the math real quick. If there was $100,000 and we had to get 170 people together doing a joint venture, we would never agree upon anything. Like, somebody wouldn't like the idea if we wanted to just pave the parking lot. They would be like, no, you don't need to do that. And we'd never agree upon anything. So the difference is, by doing the general partner, limited partner thing, the general partners, you want people who are experienced in running an asset, managing an asset, such that they know what they're doing. And then the limited partners, they don't have to take any phone calls. They don't have to make any decisions. They just benefit from the deal.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
This is a real simple thing. What you start off with, I don't know if everybody picked up on it, but I talked about 90.2% tax write-off to some investors because of the situation they're in. It's essentially a 98.2 return on investment, really, that very first year, because the money's still in it. If they did get some appreciation on the money too, that's more than barrier. And since they didn't have any money taken away because of the tax benefit, that's a return.
Yeah, so what Duke said was talk about the 98% return in the first year because of the depreciation, so you get that back immediately against your taxes. So once I started learning about this is like if you take multifamily and supercharge it with a syndication, it's like crack cocaine, because if you start learning about this, you're never going to want to go back to single family again. Like I call it the sickness. I'll share the sickness with you, and you won't want to own any more single family stuff because I can get you anywhere from 17 to 20+% return on this, and you don't have to take phone calls. You don't have to take the risk. You don't have to take phone calls. You can put a little bit of money in. Like you don't have to share all your financial stuff on a lot of the stuff. It is so much easier. You can work with people who have experience in this industry, and it's a truly passive investment. The money just gets put in your account after you've been in it 6 months to a year. It just starts rolling through. And the first year, you get a K1 for a big advantage in depreciation. So, and then Charles, I was going to talk. I got a little bit different strategy than Tillman does. I don't want to deal with tenants anymore. I'm over it. I'm getting of an age where I want to be able to go on vacation and not have my vacation ruined because somebody's toilet's overflowed into 2 apartments, and I don't want that. It's happened. I don't want that phone call anymore. Yeah. So my deal is I want to continually just keep putting money in these things. I'm both a passive LP investor and a GP investor in my deals, and my thing is I just want to keep putting money back into deals. And my idea is to get people hooked on the crack cocaine, so they just keep putting money. Like as soon as I cash them out of one, they're like, "Come on, Sean, let's find another one and go right back in another," because they've made all this money on this deal. They're going to pay taxes on a big portion of that. I'll be like, "Hey, I got a solution for those taxes. Why don't you just come with me again and let's do this again," kind of thing.
Look for Sean's little 10-second short everywhere. Trying to get you hooked on crack cocaine.
Yeah. Trying to get you hooked on crack cocaine.
It's gonna go viral. All right. I'm gonna close this out. I think there's 3 questions, and I think it's gonna hit, for the people that are newer in the room. If you've got questions, we're gonna stay around. Please stay around and network. We're here, but be respectful of everyone's time. So I got asked 3 questions, and I think they actually can kind of roll together. The one was for Tillman: if you didn't have that mentor, how would you have gotten started? The second question would just be, hey, if I am new to all of this, how do I get into the game? Is that a fair way to say that, Jordan? Right? Like, what do I do? What's that interim place when you were kind of out in the wilderness teaching yourself, hadn't gone to the Grant Cardone class yet, right? And the third one was, if let's say I have 100,000 and I'm an LP, I'm sitting here in the audience, how do I find a deal that's appropriate to invest in? So I'll let you start with, right? Just let's talk about, for you, what would you have done if you didn't have that mentor?
Yeah. So for me, I'm very, very, and I'm sure a lot of you guys, that's why you guys are successful, but very, very calculated in how I move forward, right? So before I put my trust in anyone or anything, I will look 10 steps ahead, right? I'm very, very cautious and careful. Very, very cautious and careful by what I do. So what I would have done if I didn't have my mentor, I probably would have had paralysis by analysis and not moved forward until I found someone that I could trust to guide me in the direction I needed. I don't like kind of shooting in the dark and kind of stumbling. I want to make sure all my I's are dotted and all my T's are crossed before moving forward. So long story short, I would have found someone, by some means, that I could trust to propel me forward to take that next step.
Our guy, Emmerich Peace, look for him on The Color of Real Estate, right? Says relationships will take you places that money can't.
Amen.
Right? That is why we run Grid, because I want those kind of relationships. Amen. Be transparent. So maybe Sean can answer this. If I'm brand new, what do you suggest I do? Like, I'm sitting here, I want to do something, I'm all fired up. What do I go do this weekend?
So you mean as far as like finding a deal or
Yeah, if I'm sitting here and I'm like, I think this is interesting, I'd like to go get involved somehow in this. And I'm guessing maybe on the GP side, right, Jordan?
Yeah, and finding reminders.
Yeah.
Well, the first thing you want to do is educate yourself.
And she said, how do you find investors?
So, so there's a couple different kinds of. This thing's regulated by the SEC. There's 2 different types of deals that we register. And I don't want to get too technical into this because we could go on for an hour on that. But there's 2 types of deals. One's called a 506B, and it's a friends and family thing. Where if I have friends and family, they're called non-sophisticated investors, or basically. They're sophisticated investors as opposed to accredited investors. They can put in money, and you don't have to be an accredited investor.
If I belong to an investor group and I hung out with people on a regular basis, would they be considered my friends and family?
Yes, they would. Like Grid.
Mm-hmm.
So you can invest in that type of deal through association, through grid. Or you can be an accredited investor, you can invest in a 506B, or you can do a 506C deal. A 506C deal is only accredited investors, and we take a deal and we broadcast it out, but you have to be an accredited investor in order to invest in those deals. And I personally think that's a shame. I think they're keeping good people out of investing in these things that should have a shot at this stuff because you're not a millionaire. But that's just my personal feeling. So,
right. And just to elaborate on that, so like for deals of my size, I do 506Bs, which are friends and family. So all the investors in my deals are people I've directly come in contact with, because I'm only raising, $850,000, $700,000. It is a lot of money, but it's not as crazy as raising $6 million or $10 million, right? Or for 300 unit deals. So I'm able to compile about 10 to 15 people to invest in my deals. So I use 506Bs, vice 506Cs. So I'm not broadcasting mine on a big platform.
And then for friend of the show, longtime listener, our friend Don Irian back there, Don asked, hey, what if I want to find one of these deals, how do I go find a good syndication deal?
To invest in, or
as
to be
as an LP?
As an LP.
Or maybe I want to buy in as GP, but how do I go from the consumer side, the passive investor side? How do I go find, GPs? How do I go find the deal flow?
I would encourage you to go find good people to invest with, because you can find a good deal and bad people will mess it up, and you can find an okay deal with good people to run it, or have a track record, and they'll make a success of it. Go find good people and figure out if you can trust them. Go check into them before you invest in a deal. Like, people over the deal.
I think that's the biggest key. Vet the people first, because there's a lot of people who are in this space and go about it the wrong way. A lot of people, especially on the GP side, like I mentioned, if you see people just chasing the deal to get acquisition fees, they're worried about just collecting deals and collecting their fees up front, vice really believing in the deal and the value over time. So you can kind of spot that easily after you kind of vet them. But like Sean said, vet the people first, vice the deal.
And like Tillman said, investors first. If the investors make money, if your investor makes money, we'll make money as a GP. So our investors come first.
All the time.
And so I think that's a great place to wrap this thing up. I'm going to let you guys say, before we start applauding, right? Just one thing. Why are you in here? This is a trust transfer network, right? If you come in here, how many people know me personally, right? Have had lunch with me, right? I'm looking around. I see some other people that I've had, right? How many people know Corey personally? Okay, Sean. So right when you start looking at this, it's like, oh, okay, cool. Jeremiah knows all three of those people. There's three people that can vet Jeremiah. So now I can go with Jeremiah. What do you think of, it's a small town. It's a way to triangulate that. And when you start plugging people like Charles or Richard Gamble that run these other ones, like the fact that we do kind of have a good old boys network, I think in Knox County in a very good way, means you can get plugged in pretty quickly. And there's lots of ways I can check people. Would you agree, Corey, as someone who's, you went to high school in Oliver Springs and you moved back here, but there's, right? I'm constantly amazed by people trying to do things in this town, because I was like, I know a ton about you. I know about your brother's divorce, and I don't look for that information. It's just a small town. People talk, right? I think that is the most important thing, is getting in there. We do things like pints, all these other things. Like, why is that? Why do I spend so much time networking with other agents? Had a great lunch with Walla and Lisa's, because there's trust there. So I can go get deals done. It's a lot easier to get a deal done when someone believes me when I say something. Hey, sorry, like Don's really negotiating very seriously. Like, this is it. We're not playing games. This is what has to happen there. So I think that is, it's not overcomplicated. It's use your social network. Social capital is the future, right? And so to wrap this thing up, you guys, and Corey, you got any final thoughts on this? And we'll let Sean and Tillman say their piece.
Yeah, I just think that was like a truly impactful session we had here tonight. So I really just wanted to kind of say thank you guys, like personally. That was cool. You definitely like set this off.
Give them both a big hand. Thank you.
One question. Oh. Does it make sense, I know it's a little bit complicated, does it make sense to have your investors and your management company and your GP, all three separate, so that the management company and the GP are always performing checkers on each other for the safety of the investors.
So Duke asked a question, which is, we're gonna have the meeting after the meeting, right? And so if you want an answer to that, come right up front, and Tillman and Sean will answer that for everyone that's interested. Thank you, that's an excellent question, Duke.
Yeah, the first thing I'd say is you're never too young to get started, right? So I was 27 when I started, so don't place any limiting beliefs on yourself. I was actually, sorry, you're never too young or too old to get started, I'll say that. But don't put any long story short, don't put any limiting beliefs on yourself. Push through that wall that you think is there and get to the other side. I know Sean could probably tell about hundreds of horror stories that have happened, even in these deals. It's not, I can come up here and talk about all the PT stuff, but there's so many things that's gone on behind the scenes that every day I thought about quitting, and every day, like even on my third syndication, every day I'm like, I don't want to do this, right? So, but don't let a wall stop you. Push through, break through, get to the other side, see that adversity all the way through, and I promise you it'll be worth it at the end.
Thank you both for inviting me. Thank you for your time and listening to us. I would like to second what Tillman says. I never would have believed I could have gotten to where I'm at. Don't have limiting beliefs. Like, believe you can do a whole lot more than what you think you can. I never thought I'd be a part of some of these deals that I'm a part of. Like even 2 years ago, I never would have dreamed I'd be a part of this. I've been to some of these seminars and listened to these inspirational speakers, and one of the things they said was, sometimes you can think that you can accomplish more than what you think you can accomplish more than what you actually can in a year, but I guarantee you can accomplish way more than what you think you can in 10 years. And that journey starts today. So whatever you're going to do, like, get started now, because you're going to wish 10 years ago you'd gotten started doing that. And you are, like Tillman said, you're capable of way more than what you think you are.
Hey, Sean, how can people connect with you?
I can, my email address, if you want to get in touch with me, is easy to remember. It's zonechaser@gmail.com, like go getter. That's probably the easiest way to get in touch with me. That's easy to remember. You can always get in touch with me. I've got an electronic business card. It's got all my information on it. I'm happy to help. Look, one of the things that's really cool about real estate, and more so than anything else I've ever been in, is we've all gotten here by some help from some people, and everybody's like really willing to help one another. Most people in real estate have an abundance mentality where, like, if I share something with you, it's not taking anything from me. I've gotten to where I'm at. I've asked a lot of people for help and been like a sponge. I'm happy to help whoever I can with whatever I can, whenever I can. So, I've not gotten to where I'm at because I figured everything out on my own. Ask questions. Is there something you got questions about and I can help you? Let me know.
Cool. And same question for you, Tillman.
100% what Sean said. Like, I will give everything I know to anybody because someone did it for me. I would not be on this path I was if my mentor didn't reach out and say, hey, Tillman, I'm going to make you rich. I said, hey, what do you want from me? He said, I don't want a single dime. I don't want nothing. I just want you to learn and execute what I'm giving you. So if anything is needed from me, please feel free to reach out. And to contact me, it would be either Instagram, Facebook. If you go to this, it'll go to my Popple, just put your information in. I'll be sure to reach out to you after this. But yeah, please reach out. Any question there's no question too dumb, no question, don't be scared. Please, I would love to help you guys.
And for everyone who's in the Facebook group, the simple way is, like, next week, next month, when you have a question, hey, who are those syndication guys? Just drop it in the Facebook group. Tillman and Sean are both in there. That's a super easy way. It's a great place to go ask a question, right? If you haven't joined our Facebook group, I'm going to ask you to do a couple things, just some final instructions. Join it. When you come in there, just give an intro. This is Networking 101, right? Want to see your face? Who are you? What are you looking to do, right? And if you're brand new, if I'm new in this game, here's how you can build a network. The most powerful person in this room is the connector. Right? What are they talking about? Is like, you can go play that game of like, oh, I heard you were looking for, you're looking for a contractor. So I go hunting for a contractor, I make that connection. And then in turn, I build my network. And what I found is when I'm doing that with no expectation of return, I just want to help Charles. What ends up happening is all this stuff flows back. Joe Polish wrote a book on it, What's in it for them. That is networking at the absolute highest level. It takes no capital to do. It is the easiest lead gen, and I promise if you try that, you're going to have a month that's going to shock and amaze you in terms of what that's going to do. I see Jeremiah nodding for your self-confidence, right? For your appreciation of life. Like, that is the secret. Most people are not going to do it, but I promise you that is the secret to doing everything we need to. Corey,
Absolutely.
want to thank all the people for coming out.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks everybody for coming out. Really appreciate this. Make sure to go check us out on Facebook. Sign up for our newsletter there. We make sure to give away all kinds of content. We'll see everybody next month. That's going to be October 4th. We're going to be diving into the world of short-term rentals. So super excited for that. Thanks everybody for coming out.